Well, lads, it is 2024 and Belal Muhammad is champ. And I think I can say for everyone that I'm enjoying his champ run just as much as anybody else. But I kind of believe that images speak a little bit louder than words, and that this image of Dana White kind of sums up the entire MMA community's feelings about Belal as champ. Now, don't get me wrong, Bilal is actually a very good person. He does a lot of work for charity with people that live in war-torn areas, and as well as that, I always see him very respectful towards fans whenever I see posts on him about social media. But this isn't talking about how great of a person Bilal Muhammad is. It's more to talk about why nobody likes him as a fighter. And it's because his fight style is just about as ugly as he is. The thing about Bilal's fight style is he's just a very, very big wrestle boxer. All he tries to do is pressure you with his boxing, shoot a takedown, and hold you against the fence, and as well as that, try and pin you on the ground. He never actively works to try and submit you with anything, just hold you in position and wait for the clock to count down while he hits you with some very, very light shots. I saw in one of his embedded videos that his head coach for striking said that his striking is just as good as Canelo Alvarez's. And to be honest, if I was Canelo Alvarez and I heard my striking being compared to Belal Muhammad, I think I would hang up my gloves and retire from the sport because I don't think of a greater insult that could be placed as being compared to Belal Muhammad when it comes to striking. And I know there might be some people that defend Belal Muhammad as being you just hate him because you think he's boring, or that he's actually still a very good fighter, that his fight style is very interesting and I don't understand it. For everyone that has this thing to complain about me, I actually have an interesting sport that you should watch that isn't MMA or UFC. I think you would really enjoy watching paint dry. Because if we're going to be honest, that's exactly what Bilal Muhammad's fight style is. It's boring, there's not much to do, and at the end of the day, you're just watching nothing happen and saying that it's interesting. My problem isn't so much that he's a grappler, because I think some of the best fighters in the UFC are grapplers. If we take, for example, what recently happened between DDP and Israel Adesanya, I think DDP and Bilal actually have a very similar fight style in that they both wrestle box and they both pressure their opponents against the cage and pressure them into throwing shots. The difference is when Bilal pressures someone, he holds them against the cage, takes them down, and hits them with very light shots. When DDP hits someone, he actually tries to finish the fight because when he hurt Adesanya, took him down, immediately jumped on his back to go for submission. Bilal would have just held Israel in half guard and hit him with very, very, very light shots. It's a smart way to win, but this sport is just as much entertainment as it is a sport. And if we compare him as well to his training partner, Islam Makhachev, Islam is a very, very similar fight style because they train together. But the difference is Islam actually has good striking. So he sets things up to try and counter people or hit people with shots in the open. And whenever he does get somebody down, he's actively trying to beat them up to open up a submission. We can see this in a lot of Islam's fights and kind of the opposite in Bilal's fight. Bilal just hits you to let you die of boredom. Islam hits you so he can open up submission, be it choke, armbar, or head and arm choke. Now, these are some interesting images from the DDP and Islam's fight. And if we compare this to a random action shot that I found in Bilal's fight with Leon, it's a little bit different because I know Bilal is very much a conservative kind of guy. That if he was very proud to have this image of lying in someone's guard, to someone that doesn't know a lot about MMA, I'm not going to lie, are going to think that it's pretty sus that someone would be opening lying in someone's guard. You've changed this scenery a little bit. They look like two lovers in an embrace. But what can I say? Is To be honest, Bilal did have a very good fight with Leon, in that he came forward and he pressured Leon, and he got the absolute best image I think I've seen of someone humiliating another fighter in the octagon. This image actually makes me worry a little bit for Leon, because as we all know, Leon does have problems with his confidence when it comes to fighting. And I would not be surprised if we saw after this that Leon goes on a 7 fight losing streak because he literally doesn't believe in himself. I mean, if someone like Bilal Muhammad can pick you up and slam you on your head, in front of your home country, in front of your friends and family, can that ever really bring you back to being who you want to be? Not for me to judge, but I think it's for Leon to figure out what he needs to do next. But if he goes on a losing streak, I think it all started with this image. But if we compare, look at Bilal's record as well. Now, he has some very good wins over lots of people in the division. For example, he beat Diego Lima, which is a very good fight. Damian Maia, one of the best submission grapplers the sport's ever seen. Stephen Thompson, fantastic striker. Vicente Luque, when he's still a good fighter and beating everybody. And then we start to see a little bit of a downward spiral in his wins. Gilbert Burns, he beat, but if we're being honest, this was Gilbert Burns with one arm, and he still managed to go full fight and win by decision. Sean Brady, he got a standing TKO against, but winning a striking match with Sean Brady is not something to really write home about, especially when you look at that fight. He got hit with so many unanswered shots and still wasn't able to get a knockdown. To be honest, I think the ref stopped that fight just because of Sean Brady's non-existent head movement, rather than him worried about brain damage. Because some of the shots he was hitting him with either didn't land, or were glancing, or were just didn't hit that hard at all. But again, I can't make fun of someone that goes in there professionally. Well, no, actually, I think I can because that's why I'm doing it on the internet, safe from everyone else. No, don't get me wrong. Welterweight has always been one of my favorite divisions. We've had some of the best champions ever that has come through welterweight. And there are a lot of interesting contenders coming up in the welterweight division. For example, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov and Jack Della Maddalena. These are two people that people believe are going to come in and have next challenge for the title. I'm a little bit worried about how these fights might go. Because Shavkat, it is true, on paper, he's a more interesting fighter. Man, never been to decision, wins all his fights by submission or TKO, always finishes his fights, never been a really boring fight. This is the problem. Belal pulls the boring fight out of people. And when I see Shavkat go in there against Belal, we don't know how good Shavkat's defensive wrestling is. So he could just be held against the cage, pinned to the ground, and hit with very small shots while Belal does his thing. As much as I like to rag on about Belal not being very good at going for submission, his submission defense is actually very, very good. So that's why I think he might be able to beat Shavkat coming up if they fight in the future. Jack Della Maddalena, I think, is actually probably one of the worst style matchups for Belal. Because Jack Della Maddalena has very good striking, very good submission defense, and actually has underrated wrestling, in my opinion. Which you can see in the Gilbert Burns fight, I think it shows the stark difference between Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena. Because Della Maddalena, when he knew he was down and losing the rounds, possibly could have lost the fight, fought tooth and nail, had some crazy risks, but came up with great opportunities in order to knock out Gilbert Burns. This is not something that's very easy to do. Gilbert Burns has only been stopped a few times in his career by Kamaru Usman with strikes, and to knock him out in the third round, it was very, very impressive. I kind of think that if Bilal would choose these two, he would pick Shavkat over Jack Della Maddalena because I think Shavkat might work out as a better stylistic matchup for him. But I digress. This is the way the UFC is going if Bilal is champ. And it has me worried because it's not just welterweight that might have this problem with just wrestle boxers fighting against people. Because we have a title challenger coming up that some people might be worried about. Bilal. Bilal and Merab. Very, very similar in a lot of ways they fight. Very good wrestlers, good submission defense, wrestle boxers, push the pace, and have suspect cardio in the regards that they don't slow down. But I think if the don't worry guys, if we do ever end up having Merab and Bilal as champ, as well as having Islam as champ, and maybe Ma who's anyway, do have a champ, and we just have boring wrestle boxers as champion. At least we have other organizations we can go look at, like PFL and One FC and Cage Warriors, I suppose. But I think Sugar Sean should be able to get this done. Anyway, I can talk more about that in the future. But it does make me one thing be happy that Bilal is champion is because he wants to be an active champ. And I'm just going to say that there are a lot of very interesting matchups, and I don't think there could be any boring fights lined up for Bilal if people want to come pull the pace. I mean, it's not like there's anybody else in the division that's near the top that has an even worse personality and a more boring style than Bilal. Oh, fuck.